So now I'm. This is something that's been kind of gnawing at me since Gone with the Wind, of course, was yanked off of streaming platforms, but then they was placed back because there was a lot of outcry, especially even from Black activists saying, no, we don't want that erased. It should be seen, but it should be seen and put in its proper context. So would you say that when, because you guys talk about the crying game being damaging for many trans people that were in the film, even Boys Don't Cry, different things like that. Where do you see these films living, and or do you think that they should just kind of be pushed away and never be seen again?
I don't think they should be pushed away. I actually don't think Gone with the Wind should be pulled. I think we need to have an education for critical consciousness around Gone with the Wind. We need to talk about how propagandistic Gone with the Wind is. We should also talk about how beautiful and amazing Vivian Lee is, how incredible Hattie McDaniel is. We should be talking about, it's complicated. It's really complicated. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I'm not a fan of denying history, but how do we develop citizens, human beings with critical consciousness and critical awareness so that we can look at these things with a critical perspective. Something like the crying game in disclosure, some people I think Zeke said, talked about how, the sight of a trans person body can make some people vomit, and how that message, that sense that's replicated over and over again in other films is really disheartening. But then Zachary Drucker, she says that the sight of a beautiful woman with a penis gave her such a sense of possibility. So that Crying Game can exist simultaneously. And I think Crying Game is actually quite a beautiful story with Fergus and Dill. If you watch it, it's a quite beautiful story, an amazing performance from Jay Davidson. So I think it's complicated, right? So that so we can have that critical relationship that's complicated. And it's not about dismissing things. And it's about that's what happened at the time. When we know better, we do better. Every single representation, for the most part, of trans people pre, Dirty Sexy Money was problematic, and even post Dirty Sexy Money were problematic. So every single one. So that's just what the times were, and we need to be able to acknowledge that. We need to be able to own our history so we can write a brave new ending. I had a conversation with Brene Brown last week, and one of my favorite quotes from her is she said, when we deny our story, that story defines us. But when we own our stories, we can write a brave new ending. She said the disclosure is owning the story. So it's about how do we own the story of how trans people have been represented? How do we own the story of white supremacy in America? That's one we haven't really owned yet, honey, obviously.
Obviously.
I keep going back and forth with race because we are very intersectional in our film. We talk about racism. We talk about how we talk about sexism. We talk about how these things sort of intersect in representation because it's all connected. It's all related.